Hello and welcome to Hopscotch, a podcast that hops between languages and cultures to share cross-cultural conversations about stories and books. I'm your host and Fulbright ETA, Erin Addison. Today we're going to talk about the story The Library of the Unwritten Books by Rodrigo Tisnés. We'll be having a conversation with Rodrigo himself about the story and its many aspects. Rodrigo is currently studying to be a primary school English teacher here in Uruguay. Rodrigo, welcome to Hopscotch.
Hello, Erin. Thank you for being here for your time.
Of course, I'm looking forward to our conversation and talking about the book that you wrote. So maybe give us a summary of the story and also introduce yourself.
Okay, well, it's a short story. Even you could say it's a micro story, because I think it's no longer than 500 words, 300 words,
yeah.
I think. So it's a pretty short story. Well, I'm 44 years old. I currently work as a secondary ESL teacher, and I'm studying to become a primary ESL teacher. I try to be a writer, which is very hard everywhere, but mostly here in Latin America and in Uruguay, which is a smaller country than most. Whereas I have a passion for reading, and well, that's pretty much it. The introduction. I think I covered everything.
Yes. I will say I heard that you also do some radio from time to time. Is that true?
Yeah. Nowadays, with all the places I'm working at, I have I'm like in a standby from radio. But once I began the holidays from my work, I will return with the radio. Sometimes I go as a, how do you say, I have a space in the radio and I give my opinions.
I love it. I love it.
We would say panelista, but opinólogo could also be.
Yeah, you give your opinions, maybe debate a little bit.
Yeah, and we have politicals and social interviews.
Great. That's fantastic. Well, today we're going to be talking about you. So let's get excited for your interview on your book, The Library of the Unwritten Books. So let's talk about your story.
I forgot the summary.
Yes.
In reality, nothing happens in the story in this story, with the exception that it is set in a small forgotten town. That seems to be in a place outside of time and reality, but there it's an unusual town, not only because of that strange atmosphere, but because there's a library, and there's a library most unusual also because it doesn't have any written books, but only the unwritten books.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the story.
That's the idea.
That's all the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's describing this library that's full of books that are not finished or haven't ever been written, you know?
That they were just imagined by their authors, but for any circumstance, they didn't finish them. Maybe they began writing them, but then they discarded them. I don't know, maybe they burned them.
Yeah.
Or they threw it to a paper bin, or maybe they just had the idea and they never got to sit down and write it. So that's the books that are being kept there in the library.
Love it. And when you were writing this, were you inspired by other authors or other books?
Yes, of course. I wrote it. I began writing this story in May 26 because that's our National Library Day here. So it's like a very día festivo.
Yeah.
How do you say? And I wanted to write something about a library, and of course I remember Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentinian author, a story about La Biblioteca de Babel, which talks about a library that is infinite, that has all the volumes, all the books in the universe, and has the shape of the universe. I love Borges' writing, and I came up with this idea that has to do has contact points with Borges.
Yes.
Well, I forgive me, Borges.
Yeah.
I'm comparing to you, but
But no, I mean, when I read your story, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Was this story that is a really famous Borges story. And when I was studying Spanish and I was in a short stories class, it was one of the first ones I read, and I just fell in love with the idea of the infinite, and it's kind of confusing but also interesting, and also it kind of goes into my next question. It takes you to a different place.
Yeah, because given the fact that it's a library of unwritten books, it's a magical library, in fact, or a mysterious library. I thought that I had to put it in a place that seems far apart from reality, like in a fantasy place, but I didn't want it to be a mystical land or something like that, but a town there I got inspiration also by other authors, mainly Juan Rulfo, the Mexican author, who wrote about Pedro Páramo. In Pedro Páramo, there's this town, Comala, which it's like a desert, because all its citizens are dead, but also it's like a town that has been stuck out of time, and the time has stopped there. Right. And I wanted an atmosphere that felt similar in my town.
I think you do a great job of doing it. It feels very desolate and very isolated, and we have this idea of a ghost town, that there's no one there and everyone who was there is dead, and now all that's left is everyone's remains, and now what do we do with that? And that shows up a lot in North American stories, is cowboys and westerns and deserts and tumbleweed, and I love how here it's books, it's academic.
Well, I also thought, I'm not saying that I got inspiration by that, but the Martian Chronicles from Bradbury, which I love Bradbury, it has something about this desolation, this kind of despair, that there is no hope, and mysterious things with places that exist.
Yes, yeah. It's kind of a universal topic to talk about in books. It's really interesting whenever it comes up. And so with your story, from what point of view is it told originally?
Well, it doesn't have a main character, or the character, in fact, are the town and the library, but nothing else. You don't have any character, any parliament. So it's just a description. It's just a plain narrative. So the characters are abstract.
Right. And so, think with me here.
Yeah, okay.
What if there was maybe a librarian or a bookkeeper? How could that change the story?
Yes, I think you could rethink this idea from many point of views, from the librarian, or from a bookkeeper, or even from the point of view of an author, a writer, who wants to travel to this place in order to find an idea, a book, something that can inspire him or her to write his next novel, or to find, I don't know, a masterpiece, and to become famous. And he travels like a peregrination to this library. I have thought from time to time about what the different point of views I could have I could have chosen, but I really like this.
Yeah, it's a good one. Maybe the sequel
Oh,
could
great.
be that someone takes a pilgrimage to find a new idea, and you could go from there.
Oh yeah, it would be very very interesting. I think it could be longer in that case because you have the pilgrimage, but also what he's looking for and all the travel and the arrival and what could happen. Maybe I can write a short novel about it and share with you my losings.
That would be great. If you do it, I will be the first one to read it. I promise you that.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you for this conversation. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners or you want to make a final point?
No, it was a great interview. I hope that people who can read it enjoys it and maybe can get inspired by it and maybe write the sequel. I won't mind. But maybe some people who has read it told me that they felt like it was written for them because they had they have had ideas about writing, but they haven't had the time because of their routines, their work, their families. They never had the time to sit down and begin the process of writing. So some people has told me that.
Yeah, that they feel seen by this book.
Yes, all their unfinished books or ideas of stories.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Rodrigo, for joining me. Okay, thank you for listening to Hopscotch. Please tune in to our other episodes for more cross-cultural discussions and storytelling. Many thanks to our guest and author, Rodrigo. He is a student here at Instituto Formación Docente in Rocha, studying to become a primary school English teacher. Finally, thanks to the U.S. Fulbright program for providing me the opportunity to be an English teaching assistant with this great class at EFED. Until next time, this is Erin signing off.